PayPal CEO, Alex Chriss. We will shock the world. Okay, I'm looking forward to getting into that one. Then we're going to get into this one. Palantir CEO got interviewed here today. We're going to go ahead and react to this. Watch this, kind of give my opinions and perspectives. I think this interview might ruffle some feathers out there. Some people might really appreciate this interview by Alex Karp here today. Alrighty, guys, let's get into this.
First interview since stepping into the role as the president and CEO of PayPal is Alex Chriss. It's nice to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Good to be here.
It's good to have you. The analysts don't seem to love the stock right now. It's just the last couple of weeks. I've taken a look at a few reports. Mizuho yesterday, PayPal faces competitive pressure from A to Z, downgrade. Oppenheimer, PayPal, or persistent profitability pressure has them downgrading it. Morgan Stanley, slower than expected progress on strategic imperatives. BTIG, too much uncertainty puts us on the sidelines. I mention those because I'm curious to get your response. So what do you say to these analysts to get them to change their mind, or how do you?
Well, look, we're an important company. We've got a quarter of the world's e-commerce running through PayPal. So that's why we've got 45 analysts following us. And, look, to be honest, there hasn't been a lot to celebrate over the last few years. I think innovation's been slow. The company's been growing, but hasn't been putting out real customer-backed innovation. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm so excited about it going forward. So, look, I love being an underdog. I will take all of that feedback and we'll shock the world.
Yeah, you think you're going to shock the world. How are you going to do that?
We've got an innovation day coming out.
Hold on, before we go into that a little further, okay? He says we're going to shock the world. First off, does PayPal need to shock the world to be a successful investment? Because I think that's a fair question, because there are some stocks that sometimes have to. The answer to that is absolutely not. PayPal does not need to shock the world for this to be a successful investment over the next few years. That's just a bottom line with that. It's just a very attractive valuation with decent growth. That's the story around PayPal, right? If they do shock the world and they do innovate in a massive way, I mean, that's just, cherries on top in this whole situation. That's where you get some, insane stock price movement. But they don't need to shock the world for this to be for this stock to go to 120 or 150 or 180 or something like that. If you want to talk about going back to 300 or above 300, okay, yes, we need to come in and shock the world and innovate in a massive, massive way.
25th, where from the first week that I got there, this was not about trying to figure out what to go do. It is very clear what we need to do. 24 will be a transition year for us, but it'll be all about execution, and it starts with innovation. So on the 25th, we're going to come out.
So two important things. One is the event's going to be on the 25th, showing off innovation. Two is he described 2024 as a transition year for the company, which kind of it has to be. I mean, if you have a new CEO come in at the very end of this past year, obviously it's this first year getting things up and rolling.
Very clear customer-backed innovation that we'll be rolling out for consumers, for our merchants, for Venmo. And I think it'll be a good start to this year.
Anything you can tell us at this point? Obviously, I don't want you to ruin the rollout, so to speak, but when you say you sort of have a very clear idea of what you have to do, and then you say innovation, any specifics you can provide?
Well, look, PayPal hasn't delivered the value proposition to its consumers or its merchants over the last few years that I think we're capable of. We have more data. We see exactly what people are purchasing around the world. So we need to make a better value proposition for consumers, put more money in their pockets. For our merchants, we have the ability to leverage AI to deliver an incredible improvement in their conversion rates. And then we have to let our small businesses and our consumers connect, leveraging AI-driven personalization.
And you believe that, for example, using the data more effectively for particularly the merchant side can bring, higher profit margins? I mean, how does this translate?
Well, look, we have over 35 million merchants that are using PayPal. When we improve their conversion rate, it improves their business, it improves our bottom line. We're kicking things off on the 25th.
I mean, you do have an awful lot of data. You ever consider just selling it or working with others as well to sort of pool that data in some effective way?
The data is our customers' data. It's our consumers' data and our small businesses' data. What we need to do is leverage AI to make it better for them to be able to grow their businesses. Small businesses are under a ton of pressure right now. It is hard to be a small business in good times. It's not good times right now. We can give them an advantage. Advertising costs have gone up 2x over the last few years. We need to be able to give them the opportunity to leverage the data that they have and improve their business.
Right. All right. When you speak to investors.
So I don't know where he's going with this. He's talking about AI. He's talking about advertising costs. He's talking about giving, small businesses an advantage. So I don't know exactly where he's going with this as of right now. I'm going to have to do some more thinking about this and plotting, but I don't know exactly where he's going here.
Now, and it also is encapsulated to a certain extent in some of these analyst reports as well. Competition comes to mind. Your lack of significant profit margin expansion and or actually lack of profit margin, Apple Pay, buy now, pay later. Do you have an answer to these? You talk about what is a still relatively dominant position, but at the same time, it seems as though you've taken on a lot of business that doesn't really have a margin associated with it.
Yeah, I think we have done too many acquisitions over the last few years, and we've been defocused. It was one of the things I noticed when I came in 100 days ago. We've got a lot of priorities. We've narrowed those down, 5 key priorities, all focused on profitable growth. And so I think you'll see us start to move away from some businesses that we may have been in and really focus our energy and our efforts on building profitable growth going forward. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, he just mentioned profitable growth twice as a shareholder of the company and somebody that would like to buy more of these shares. That is something I love to hear, okay? Do I like that Alex Chris did that interview? And the answer is no. I do not like that he just did that interview with CNBC. I love that he did that interview with CNBC right there. This man needs to get out there over this next year and do a lot of interviews with CNBC, with Bloomberg, with pretty much whoever would give him an interview. Like, I would get out there as much as possible. That's realistic, obviously, with his schedule being obviously very busy, being the CEO of the company. But he needs to get out there because one of the problems with PayPal is the story is not being understood from any angle, I think, from Wall Street right now. And that's why the stock trades at a forward P of like 10. I mean, this is a company with 5 to 10% revenue growth for a long time to go in the future without even shocking the world. And we gotta, just Wall Street doesn't understand it. They don't understand the story. So he needs to get out there and do a lot of interviews over this next 12 months, in my personal opinion. That's the best thing you can do when your stock is very misunderstood and the company's very misunderstood. Also, if you're a Palantir shareholder, let me know in the comments section what your price prediction is for Palantir stock at this time next year. So January 2025, where do you think Palantir stock is? Let me know in the comment section. I'm very curious to kind of hear how bullish or bearish or maybe neutral people are in regards to Palantir. Appreciate y'all, and let's get into this.
I started out by asking him about his recent trip to Israel.
The main reason I went is because we corporate leaders, especially corporate leaders who are running publicly traded companies, need to stop just parroting things we don't believe when it's popular, and then being silent when it's a little more controversial.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we have we had a movement, I think it's fading away, largely understood as wokeism, where people said, quite frankly, in public, lots of things that no one believed they believed in private. Now with Israel, most people in positions of authority realize that what happened on October 7th was one of the worst terror attacks the West has ever seen, arguably the worst act of terrorism and sexual barbarism the world has seen in 100 years. And it is incumbent on us to actually not only speak loudly in private, but occasionally show what we mean in public. And so core to defending the West for me was not just me going to Israel. I'm very well known there. Our products are used there. I'm proud of that. But bringing the whole board and saying, look, you can debate lots of things about Israel, but the people who are attacking it are calling into question the very existence of a thoroughly democratic Western country that is defending our rights, and we cannot just speak loudly in private. And one of the key issues that you find, including here, is, people want to talk about rebuilding trust, the elite. No one trusts the elite. Yes, but how could you trust the elite if everything you're saying is a half-truth at best?
You ran a full-page ad in the New York Times after the tragedy that we saw in Israel. You were the only company that I saw do anything like that. What was the reaction to that from your fellow CEOs?
Look, there are a lot of people who are like, you're beep crazy. You're going to get in a lot of trouble. People are going to call up and yell at you. And my reaction to them was, is never again mean I never take the risk of my own career. Is like, it was always hard in history to stand up against discrimination, brutal acts, pogroms, sexual violence. We are at the point where you have to stand up. And, the interesting thing is in private, a lot of people agree with me. Their position is, but you can't say it in public because you'll offend someone. And this is exactly wrong. You can no longer live in a world where you are not saying something that will offend, you only say things that will offend no one. Like, if you're going to defend something, you have to defend it.
But then what's your view about companies that were speaking out on lots of other social issues that I think you don't think that they believed in?
So the core reason why people who are basically decent, wonderful people in America have basically no trust in the elite is everyone senses that they spoke out on things they actually don't believe in, and they set a precedent. The precedent that they set was, I'm going to speak out about moral causes. Okay, now you have a crucial moral cause. Like, you can be against what I'm saying. You could be against standing with Israel. You can't say you don't have an opinion. You don't have an opinion on this. You have fallen on your head. And if there are people in corporate America who say, look, I never have an opinion. My opinion is the shareholders. I actually am sympathetic with them. But if you spent the last 5 years lecturing us about all sorts of things that no one believes you believe in private, you can't just wake up the next day and say, oh, I can't speak about this thing I believe, or say I have no opinion. And
I think that's fair. You know, a lot of companies want to speak up about a lot of issues, and then, you know, they're silent on other ones. It's like, if you're going to speak up on, you know, a lot of issues, you better be there for subjects like this, right? Even when it's tough situations. That's the bottom line with that. If it's somebody, Alex Karp says he respects, like, if somebody wants to stay out of everything, stay out of everything, right? But if you want to just, you know, pick and choose your battles, that's where it gets tough.
Crazy ridiculous, and it undermines the fabric of our democracy because no one believes it.
Let me ask you about what's happening here in Davos, because one of the conversations that we have not seen in large part is one about what's really happening on the ground in Israel, a conversation about anti-Semitism, the same conversation that's happening in institutions all over the world, but it doesn't seem to be here yet. It seems so very limited.
Davos has an important function. I live on a different planet. Like, on the planet I live in, climate is important, fighting bigotry of all kind is important. The most important issue of our time is war and peace, and the absolute most important metaphor for that is, what do you think about what happened in Israel? And by the way, anti-Semitism as a kind of prejudice has always been the canary in the coal mine for your society isn't working, your university isn't working, you're not providing real growth to your population, and because you're not explaining why it doesn't work, you just go blame the Jews. And so, like, any enterprise that's about making the world a better place that doesn't deal with these issues is basically saying, I'm not really engaging in the problem. And this is not just a problem here. It's a problem with all sorts of institutions, from our higher education to fake discussions in corporate America to international conferences. And I don't know why it falls on me to say the obvious, but this is obviously just shows you're not talking about the real problem.
Can you speak to your recruiting efforts and how you're changing them in terms of where you plan to recruit people from and how you think about what used to be the most prestigious schools in America?
Look, Palantir, in all modesty, has been way ahead of the curve. We test everyone. You went to Harvard, we test you. You went to University of Colorado, you went to go to community college, we retest you. In the 50s in America, if you were a Yale degree, a Yale alum, and you got retested, you'd be offended. The legitimacy of our institutions is so much weaker. Everybody's going to move to our methodology. You have to retest. Until we reform our institutions, I don't know what a grade is. I know what our test is. And
when you say reform our institutions, what does that mean?
Look, across democracy in the West, we have a large focus on what we pay, not what comes out. In tech, we have an absolute myopic focus on what comes out, not what goes in. And our institutions have to move from what did we spend to what did we get. And that's very, very scary because the outcomes are unfair. And that's why I'm actually still a card-carrying progressive, because we have to take care of the people who are not going to benefit from the AI revolution, who are not going to participate, who need remedial help. But the reality of what the West needs to do in every institution is it does not matter what you spend. It matters what you get. And by the way, if there's one lesson of software, the single thing that America does better than any other country, it's not input, it's output.
I didn't really want to interrupt Karp there much because he was just kind of going off there, and I'm sure a lot of people definitely appreciate that. Real quick here, at the end they were talking about hiring and they're talking about Palantir. So what I've personally heard out of Palantir's hiring process is I have heard that it is extremely difficult to get hired at Palantir. From what I heard, it's been more difficult to get hired at Palantir than it is even, the Googles and the Metas and those sorts of companies. So from what I heard, like people that get hired to these other big tech companies, a lot of them can't even make it out of the first round with Palantir. So that's what I heard. Obviously, I haven't been through the process with Palantir, so I can't tell you what, personally, but that's what I've heard from several different folks now at this point in time.